Hey everyone, I'm Pastor Jay and welcome to Simple Church Online. Whether you missed last Sunday, you're checking us out for the first time, or maybe even watching out of state, we're so glad that you're a part of our community. And we're praying today that as you watch, God would use this to bless your life. Enjoy the message.
Well, good morning, Simple Church, and happy Mother's Day. I've always said there's only two things that can get me in a jacket to preach, and that's Jesus and my mama. So this is in honor of her today. She always liked us dressing up. And so we just want to say happy Mother's Day to all the moms. And I know that you're probably tired and don't want to do it, but I do want to recognize you today. And so if you're a mom, will you please stand so that we can recognize you? And thank you for everything that you do. Let's give a hand to moms. Thank you guys so much for what you do. And let me say this, moms, I want you to look up here. You're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. Golly. I told you, I thought I had all my tears out. We did graduation on Friday with my daughter, and so I've shed a lot of tears, and so I thought they were all gone. But one thing that I like to do on Mother's Day and Father's Day, those kind of days, is to recognize those who this is a difficult day. Some of you have lost parents, lost moms. Some of you have a strained relationship. Some of you are unable to get pregnant, and so this can be a difficult day for you. And I want you to know that I set aside time during these weeks to pray for you, because I know that this can be difficult. So just know that you have someone praying for you that's with you in this. I'm a few years down the road now with losing my mom, but it's still tough every single year. And this graduation time surely made it even more difficult. My wife was putting together a party, and she was finding pictures of all of Emma's first days of school, and she couldn't find a couple of the years, and so I've got everything backed up on hard drives and all that stuff. And she's like, can you find these pictures? And I'm like, sure, I'll do that. 3 hours later of going back through from birth to like now, crying my eyes out, and so it's been an interesting week of highs and remembering and sadness and joy and all of those things. And so we're going to celebrate moms today, and we're kicking off a new series to do that called Weighed Down. So if you were with us over the past several weeks, we've been going straight through Romans, just line by line, because I think it sets the bedrock of what faith is really all about. If my faith, the bedrock of my faith is not Jesus, then nothing else really matters. I can give you all the pump-up speeches that you can handle, but if the bedrock, the center of my faith is not Jesus, then it really doesn't matter. And so my hope and my prayer through the beginning of the Roman series, we're going to pick it up again some other time, but my hope is that you kind of, if you didn't understand what salvation was, or if you haven't really fully committed to what this thing is, that maybe you've started that journey of Jesus being at the center, at the core of who you are. So then what happens when we get serious about our faith? The enemy doesn't like that. If you just come to church and you do nothing with that, and you just kind of hang out, Satan's like, cool, man, you're kind of a waste of space. So just to be honest with you, he doesn't put a lot of effort into that. But when you get serious about your faith, when you let Jesus actually change you, when you become a spiritual leader in your home, when you go out into your workplace and you're actually kind to people and show them love Jesus, the enemy does not like that. That's when he wants to start tripping you up. And so what he does is he puts things in your path that are going to trip you up. And the thing is, he's really good at it. He knows you. And so these things get on us and they weigh us down. And they keep us from one, being the person that God wants us to be, but experiencing the joy that we're supposed to experience. If I were to pass a mic around right now or go person by person and just say, hey, are you tired? Are you stressed? I think we could go person by person and give the reasons. Why? Because we get weighed down with these things of the world. And so I'm hoping over the next few weeks in the series that we can begin to throw off some of these things that are keeping us from the journey that God actually has for us. And this is not, some just like believe in yourself and go get it. Remember, that's why the bedrock has got to be Jesus, because stuff's coming, and we've got to be ready to handle it. Kind of the theme verse for this series is Hebrews chapter 12. Now, we don't know exactly who wrote Hebrews. Could be Paul, could be somebody else. But he says this in chapter 12, verse 1. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. God's race for you, God's plan for you, God's journey for you is not meant to be a struggle. It's not meant to be tiring. And now the stuff's going to come. The circumstances are. The circumstances are tough. The circumstances wear you out. But God's race for you is meant to be filled with joy and peace and patience and kindness and all the fruits of the Spirit. But this world comes in and it feeds us stuff and it weighs us down. So the writer of Hebrews says, hey, therefore, because we have these great cloud of witnesses, let's throw off everything that hinders us, and especially the sin that we get caught up in. Let's leave all that and run with endurance the race that's set out before us. Now, at the beginning of 12, he says, therefore, and as I've always said, I've heard pastors say throughout the years, if you see the word therefore, you need to know what it's there for, right? So he is referencing Hebrews 11. Now, we call this the Hall of Faith, the Hall of Heroes. He lists out all of these people and their great things. And here's the tendency that we have to do. See, today we're going to talk about comparison and envy. And so the chapter before, he says, by faith, all these people did these great things. And immediately, if you're like me, the easy thing to do is start to comparing what they did. And start to analyze my life. How does that match up? But the writer of Hebrews is trying to get us to see, no. Listen, it was by faith that they did these things. So he's reminding, before we get into throwing this stuff off, before we get into running the race, remember, the only way that these people accomplished all these great things, go home and read him, he talks about Moses and Abraham and all these great people, the only way that they accomplished these things was through faith. Faith alone. So you're no different from them. You have faith as well, and you can accomplish great things. So don't compare. Be encouraged by that. Since we're surrounded by all these people who did amazing things, you can do the same things. So this is meant to be an encouragement, not to compare. It's going to be really important for us to understand, because one of the it's attributed to Theodore Roosevelt, but what does he say? The comparison is the thief of joy. When we start looking out in the world and start comparing ourselves with other people or what they have, what we don't have, whatever, it stills our joy. Because now just being grateful for what we have, now I have to compare to what everyone else has. There's a great moment in Scripture that I want to talk about today that kind of shows us how this creeps into our life. Now, we celebrated Easter a little while ago. We celebrated the resurrection of Jesus, and it's the greatest moment in the history of the world. It means life change for every single person. It means that a relationship with God is available. And so we celebrated that resurrection, and we celebrated the fact that Jesus walked around on earth and he showed himself to his disciples. And he's going to do that again here at the end of John. And he's going to have an interaction with Peter. And if you remember what we read about Peter, he was the one, he's the loudmouth. He's who I would be if I was following Jesus. Like, I got this, Jesus, whatever you need, I'm the man. And then Jesus says, you're all going to desert me whenever I get arrested. And Peter's like, even if all these other losers do, not me, Jesus. Right? I'm the man, don't worry about that. And then Jesus gets arrested. And he says, not only are you going to desert me, Peter, but you're going to deny me 3 times. Peter's like, nah, come on, man. It's me. It's Peter. And as you know the story, he denies that he even knows Jesus 3 times. He runs from him, and Peter's brokenhearted over that. And so he's going to have a new experience with Jesus, and Jesus is going to bring him back in. But then it's going to lead us to a very interesting moment with Peter and Jesus. So if you have your Bibles, you can turn to John chapter 21. We're going to read a few verses here just to get some context. So Jesus has risen from the dead. He's been going around meeting with people. He's seen the disciples a couple of times. And it says in verse 1, later Jesus appeared again to the disciples beside the Sea of Galilee. This is how it happened. Several of the disciples were there: Simon Peter, Thomas, nicknamed the twin, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, and the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples. Simon Peter said, I'm going fishing. We'll come too, they all said. So they went out on the boat, but they caught nothing all night. Now, if you remember when they were first called to be disciples, this exact same thing happened. It's funny how this works. At dawn, Jesus was standing on the beach, but the disciples couldn't see who he was. He called out, fellows, have you caught any fish? No, they replied. Then he said, throw out your net on the right-hand side of the boat, and you'll get some. So they did, and they couldn't haul in the net because there were so many fish in it. Again, same thing that happened when they were called to be disciples. Then the disciple Jesus loved said to Peter, "It's the Lord." When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his tunic, for he had stripped for work, jumped into the water, and headed to the shore. The others stayed with the boat and pulled the loaded net to the shore, for they were only about 100 yards from shore. When they got there, they found breakfast waiting for them, fish cooking over a charcoal fire and some bread. "Bring some of the fish you've caught," Jesus said. So Simon Peter went aboard and dragged the net to the shore. There were 153 large fish, and yet the net hadn't torn. I love when the Bible gives us specific detail. God cares about the details. "Now come and have some breakfast," Jesus said. None of the disciples dared to ask, "Who are you?" They knew it was the Lord. Then Jesus served them bread and fish. This was the third time Jesus had appeared to his disciples since he had been raised from the dead. So this is a really interesting time in history when the disciples are still trying to figure out what's going on, right? We have hindsight. We know the story. And sometimes we get on the disciples and we're like, "How did you guys not know? This is the exact same thing that happened when he called you is happening now. How do you not know this is Jesus? How it's not working?" Listen, they were human beings like you and I. They're still trying to figure out how this guy who is dead is now alive and all the things that they're trying to discover. And so they're going back, they're doing fishing, they're just trying to live life and figure out how do I put all this stuff together. And once again, they have this interaction with Jesus. And what I love about Jesus is he takes them back to the place that they were at first. He goes through the same things to remind them. You remember when I called you? Yeah, I've got something for you. But Jesus is going to call Peter aside, and he has something special for Peter here in verse 15. Remember, he's denied Jesus 3 times, and Jesus is going to bring him back. It says, after breakfast, Jesus asked Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," Peter replied. "You know I love you." "Then feed my lambs," Jesus told him. Jesus repeated the question, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord," Peter said. "You know I love you." "Then take care of my sheep," Jesus said. A third time he asked him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was hurt that Jesus asked the question a third time. He said, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." And Jesus said, "Then feed my sheep." Jesus is bringing Peter back to the calling that he placed on his life. And I want you to hear something today. I don't care what you've done. I don't care how much you've turned your back on God, how much you've hated him, blamed him. He is never done with you. Okay, listen, I'm telling you, somebody here today, he is never done with you. He's not mad at you. He loves you, and he's ready to bring you back. Peter blew it. 3 times he had the opportunity to say, "Yes, I know Jesus," and 3 times he said, "Nope, I don't even know that man." One time even saying, "A curse on me if I even know that guy." God wasn't done with him. See, when he first called Peter, he said, "Follow me, and I'm going to make you fishers of men. I'm going to help you. You're going to bring people in." But the second time he calls him, he says, "I'm making you a pastor. Feed my sheep." Listen, when we become serious about following Jesus, he will take us further than we ever imagined. God is not done with you. I don't care the mistakes that you've made. I don't care the opportunities that you squandered. He is not done with you. And not only that, it's not just like you're back in, you just made it back into his family. No, he is ready to use you in ways you could never imagine. And what I found is that for some reason, we think that we can't be used. We look at the hall of faith there in Hebrews 11, we're like, "Oh, this is Abraham, this is Moses, this is David, these are No, God's ready to use you in great ways. We just have to be available." And so he calls Peter into a greater relationship. When our focus is on Jesus and Jesus alone, he will take us further and do greater things than we ever thought possible. But there's things that get in the way. There's a really interesting interaction now. So Jesus, in verse 18, he says this to Peter, "I tell you the truth. When you were young, you were able to do as you liked. You dressed yourself and went wherever you wanted to go. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and others will dress you and take you where you don't want to go." Jesus said this to let him know by what kind of death he would glorify God. Then Jesus told him, "Follow me." So Jesus says, "I got some news that I want you to know. That You're gonna go out and you're gonna feed the sheep. You're gonna pastor people. But you're also gonna die for it. That's tough to take in. But his only caveat to that is follow me. Even when things are tough, even when you know it may not turn out the way you think it's going to turn out, follow me. Don't worry about anything else. Don't focus on anything else. Just follow me. You remember the moment when Peter got out of the boat and walked on water, the only human being in history to do that? He was doing so good, and then what happened? He started noticing everything else around him, and he lost focus on Jesus. He begins to sink. Now, unfortunately, Peter's going to walk through that same place again. John 21:20 says this, right after Jesus tells him that. Peter turned around and saw behind them the disciple Jesus loved, the one who had leaned over to Jesus during supper and asked, Lord, who will betray you? And Peter asked Jesus, what about him, Lord? Here's this moment where Peter has this declaration from Jesus. I'm taking you. You're going to be a pastor. I'm going to use you in ways you never imagined. You're going to feed the sheep. You're going to build the kingdom. You're going to do amazing things. And you're going to die for that. And you're going to be celebrated for that. But just follow me. Don't worry about anything else. You just follow me. I'll take care of the rest. I promise you. You don't have to worry about all the other things around you. Don't worry about the circumstances. Don't worry about the people. I got you, Peter. Follow me. It says that Peter turned around. This turned around it literally means 180. It means to turn from what's happening to go to something else. In the moment of the greatest calling in his life, Peter turns around. The comparison trap is dangerous. And I've got to be honest with you, when we started planning this series and kind of planned what we were going to talk about, the first thing that fell on this day was bitterness and anger, and I didn't feel like for Mother's Day that is something that I should preach, so we moved that. But then there was going to be a comparison and envy. And I thought for Mother's Day, does that make sense? But I heard this study. Harvard University did a study. It took 100 men and 100 women, and they set them individually in a room for an hour. Nothing in the room at all. No sound, no, just them in a room in a chair. 1 hour. How many of you would lose your ever-loving mind? You ever try to sit still for like 5 minutes? I get you. You would lose it. You would just, minute and a half in, they'd be like, how'd she break that window? Nobody knows. I would too. I can't sit still. But for an hour, they brought the men out, so they did this one by one. They weren't all in a room together. It was a single person at a time. So they brought everybody out, and they asked them, what did you think about while you were in there? For the men, no surprise, it was sports, happy fun marriage time, and nothing. Those were the three things that men thought about. You think we're complicated, we're really not. They asked the women, what did you think about while you were in there? The majority of women said they were analyzing and evaluating conversations they'd had that week. They were spending time wondering if they'd offended somebody with something they said, what that person meant by what they said. And it's like, guys don't do that. And they're like, no, we're not like, I wonder if Bill took that the wrong way. I should probably, we're just like, hey, man, and then we're just over it, right? The truth is, our brains work different. And for women, comparison is really, really difficult. And I know so many moms from counseling times, from just being alive and being around people that struggle every day, wondering if they're living up to something. This mom, that mom, or do I cook as good as, what's her name? Drummond, Ree Drummond. Do I, whatever as good as this other person on HGTV? Am I living up to this? Or just on Facebook, am I living up to this world? Am I living up to that? And I know this because my own mom, I remember her saying so many times as we got older and we would sit down and we'd talk about life, she would just start crying and she would say, I know I wasn't a good mom. I know this, I didn't do this right. I know I didn't do this right. And yeah, she made mistakes along the way, but she was a great mom. And can I just encourage you with this, kids in here? Tell your mom how great she's doing. I don't care if you're 40, you're still a kid to somebody. If your mom's alive, tell her how great she's doing. I feel like there's so many moms who don't know how well they're doing because there's so much comparison out there. My mom loved us well, and she made mistakes along the way, but I mean, to be where we are today, my family is today, it's because of her love for me. And I wish that I would have told her that more. Comparison is the thief of joy. You know, they started this studies on what's called social comparison back in 1954 is when they started these studies on social comparison. And they were talking about the effects of comparing yourselves to other people. Little did they know, 75 years later, how crazy it would be. And they began to talk about how there's two kinds of typical comparison: upward comparison and downward comparison. Upward comparison is when we look at somebody who has more than us or we think are better than us, and we compare ourselves to them, and it leads us to feeling worse about ourselves. I'm not living up to what they have. And then there's what's called downward comparison. That's when we look at other people who we believe are not as good as us or don't have as much, and we say, I'm better than them. And this is how social comparison works. We live life and we go out and we have all this comparison. And now back in the the 50s and growing up, and even in the up to really the 2000s, early 2000s, your comparison was just the people you were around. At school, who had the cool car, who had this, who had that, who had the nicer stuff. I guess if you got magazines or whatever. What was it back in Teen Beat? Was that one of the back in the day? What else was it? Was there one like Tiger? Was there a Tiger something? The Tiger Beat? Is it Teen Beat and Tiger Beat? Way to be creative, 90s or 80s or whatever. But maybe if you got magazines or if you watch movies out, you're comparing yourself, and there wasn't quite as much upward comparison. You're kind of comparing yourself with people equal than you, and so, everybody does it, right? We all compare ourselves. I live my life. I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. If anybody in here is a 3, that you're very image conscious. You care what people think. That's the way that I live my life. Now, thank God he's grown me past that. I don't really care too much anymore, so that's why it's the only way that I'm able to get up here and say the things that I'm saying, because, God's the most important thing to me, and I'm going to say what he wants me to say. But at the end of the day, the same's true for me. Like, I worry about what people think, but you bring in now social media. And the amount of upward comparison has more than quadrupled. That daily, the upward comparison is happening over and over and over again. Why? Because social media is where you post the best stuff about yourself. Nobody gets on social media and is like, man, I'm a loser. I just want to tell you, I have not showered in 3 days. Ladies are not like, I haven't shaved my legs in 3 months. No, it's like posting the best of the best, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's the point of it, is to celebrate life, celebrate what God is doing. But what's happened in that is that we see the best of everyone, so our life is now constant upward comparison. In order to counteract that, what happens is we have to have equal downward comparison. So you can see where this is a dangerous game. The less good I feel about myself because of the upward comparison, the more I have to put people down or make other people out to be bad people so that I can now feel better about myself. In 2022, there were 4.2 billion social media users that spend an average of 2 hours a day. Think about this. That's in 2022. I'm sure that it's more now. 4.2 billion people are averaging at least 2 hours a day with upward comparison. It's no wonder we're miserable. All the studies are finding. You want to feel a little bit bleak, a little bit down today? Maybe do it tomorrow, not for Mother's Day, but go research social media comparison data. It is running wild with the amount of self-image issues, with self-esteem issues, with the mental health. Everything is going downhill. Why? Because we're constantly looking and having to match ourselves up against other people. And I would just say this: if you have a student and you are responsible for them and they have any kind of media, you should be limiting the amount of exposure they have to that stuff. It is your responsibility as a parent to limit that. They are teenagers. They're going to want to stay on there as much as their friends do as much as their friends do. You do not know the lasting effects that it will have. And I'm not going to set times for you because my kids will be like, Dad, don't do that. People are going to hate us. But how much time do you want them on social media being influenced by that stuff? Think about your own life. How much time do we spend? And this is not I know this may feel like a bummer. I'm trying to wake us up. Because what I see so often, especially with young moms, and this is young dads too, but young moms more, is they spend so much time comparing and thinking they should be doing this, they should be better at this, that they miss out on the years that they have with their kids. As a dad who has had a long week, can I just tell you this? You're going to blink your eyes, and they're going to be standing on a stage. It's going to happen. And when they're young and they're running around and they're driving you crazy, you're like, please, God, can we get there? You're going to miss these times. I'm telling you right now, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss the nagging questions. But why is that? Well, because it works. Well, but why is that? I don't know. I don't know why ovens beep. I can't. They just have things. I can't give you all the answers, right? You know what I'm talking about if you have kids. So my go-to, and you can use this if you want to, was that it was broken. So anything that they needed, wanted, that I didn't want to be involved in, it's broken. Can we go outside? It's broken. And my kids are just now probably coming out of that. They're probably just now. You're going to miss it. And what I don't want you to do, young parents, is spend your life comparing to other people. It's the thief of joy. Moms, if you are present, you are doing a good job. You're not going to get it right. You're going to blow up sometimes. I can tell you some stories about my mom. If you want to talk after, I'll tell you some stories, right? She was there. She was the one who brought Play My Son signs to the football games. Appreciate that, Mom. Not embarrassing at all. She was there. And that's what I remember. Moms, do not let comparison rob you of the youth of your kids. Give yourself a break. You're doing okay. Just be there. Got to work out those details. You have such a high calling as a mom. Just be there. Peter's in this moment, and he has this high calling from Jesus. And Jesus tells him he's going to die. And Peter's immediate reaction is to turn around and look at John and say, well, what about him? In that moment, it just became about, well, he better get the same outcome that I get, or this isn't fair. That's just the natural human experience. Even in the face, standing there with Jesus, who has just commissioned you to be one of the first pastors in the world, his first thought is to turn around and say, what about him? Now, it says in John several times, the disciple whom Jesus loved. And people are like, no wonder, because John called himself the disciple Jesus loved. Who is this guy, and why does he feel the need to do that? Let me just say this, because I think I've heard a lot of people preach about how, not necessarily they thought he was better than everyone, but he kind of put himself on that pedestal. I don't think that's true. I think there's a couple reasons he did it. I think it identified him as an eyewitness. I think he wanted people to know that I'm speaking the truth because I got to walk with Jesus. I loved him, he loved me. But I think the most important reason that he calls himself the disciple Jesus loved is because it was the most important piece of his identity. Moms, can I just challenge you? Make that the most important piece of your identity. Listen, you're a mom, I'm a dad. We have these labels, and that's fine. You're a wife, you're whatever, wherever that fits for you. Those labels are fine. It's great. I hope you love being called mom. I hope you love being a wife. But can you let your identity, the core of who you are, be that you're loved by God? Because when that's it, you don't have to compare yourself to, who cares? You're loved by God. He's supreme. You don't need anybody else's approval. Listen, if you want to give your kid Mountain Dew when they're 3, that's up to you. Like, don't worry what other parents think. I can't believe she. Don't do that. I think that's wrong. I remember whenever we were shopping one time when Emma was a baby, and I had a Sprite, and so I grabbed the straw and I just gave her some Sprite. I'm like, she's going to love this. That did not go over really well. So listen to moms. They know what they're talking about. Just be loved by God first. That's how John identified himself. But the truth is, John was very, very close to Jesus. That's why Scripture tells us that he was the one sitting next to Jesus when Peter said, hey, find out who the betrayer is, right? That's why John tells us this. He wanted us to understand that he had a close relationship. I will say, it does crack me up in John chapter 20, where it's talking about running to the tomb after Jesus has been resurrected. And John does put, the disciple who loved Jesus, who Jesus loved, got there first. Now, I do think that was a little bit of a shot at Peter. And I love that the Bible keeps that in there because I think it shows the humanity of them. And so there was definitely some stuff going on between John and Peter. And I'd love that. Again, my hope is that we have a movie screen in heaven and we get to see that. And the race to the tomb is going to be set to what's the Chariots of Fire, yeah. And John's just like, da, 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 you know. So there was some level of comparison and some kind of competition there. But look what Jesus says. Verse 22. Jesus replied, if I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? As for you, follow me. I love what Jesus does. And of course, Jesus is the greatest. He doesn't say, well, let me tell you what's going to happen with John, and then you can be okay with it, and blah, blah, blah. Quit worrying about that. Stop looking at other people. Peter, get off social media and listen to what I'm telling you. Just follow me. I've got it all planned out for you. I have such a great life planned for you. Stop worrying what everybody else is doing and how they're parenting and what they're doing and what they're cooking and how many, all this stuff. I've got a great plan for you. I've got a great life for you. Just follow me. Don't worry about any of that other stuff. And I feel like there's some moms here today that need to be released. Don't worry about anybody else. You got enough of your own. The last thing you need to be doing is trying to keep up with somebody else. You know how hard it is nowadays just to keep up with ourselves? It's so busy. It's so busy. We don't have time to worry about other people. God has a great plan specifically for you. When you get arrested, what's the first thing that they do when they book you? What's the first thing they do? Yeah, right after that. I haven't heard it yet. Fingerprints. I'm not going to ask anybody why they know these things. That's not what this is about. I was like, nobody wants to say anything. I don't know. I've never. One of the first things they do is they fingerprint you. Why? Because your fingerprint is an identity marker. Why? Because no one else in this world has your fingerprints. Think about this. What are we at? 9 billion people in this world right now? 0 people have the same markers as you. Why? Because God created you to live your life. To be free from all this comparison. To not worry about what anything else. I've created you to be unique. To live your way. To do what you want to do. To experience life the way that I've created it for you. Don't worry about anybody else. Release that. For some of you today, listen, I know I bashed the American church and blah, 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 and all this. For some of you, you need to hear it. Some of you today, you need to get off social media. Take a break. If you can't get off of social media for a week, you have a problem. You have a problem. So starting today, after Mother's Day and the post and all that stuff you need to do, take a week off. Take a week off. Read Scripture. See if you don't feel better. I don't have much time here. And it's not just women, but it's a lot women, because I've seen this. They turn into sleuths on Facebook. I've seen them be PIs better than the top CIA people. My wife will come to me and she'll be like, did you know that blah, 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 and I'm like, how did you know that? Well, I went to so-and-so, and so-and-so said this and this, and then back in 1964, this person said that. I'm like, well, how did we get here? because God has given them such a great brain for detail. But you know what happens? The enemy uses that detail against you. Can I just tell you today, release that to him. Young people, I love you. And coming from what my kids call an old head, nowadays I get it. The more you spend on social media, the more you're going to be comparing yourself to other people, and you don't need to do that. God made you to be unique. He has a plan for you specifically. Don't compare yourself to other people. It's a dangerous trap. And most of the time, man, the people are miserable that you're comparing yourself to, right? Back in our day, it was Brad Pitt, and who was he married to? Angelina Jolie. Like, they were the top of the top. They're divorced, and who knows what's happening. And I hope they're doing great. But we compare ourselves to these people, and they're miserable. Can we release that back to God? Now, I want to end with this. I know I got to be done with this. In Hebrews, it gives us the game plan of how to do this. He says this right after he says let's go back and read 1. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race God has set out before us. How do we do that? Here we go. We're going to end with this right here. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Moms, can I just challenge you today? Let Jesus be the core of who you are. Let him be the one who initiates, who perfects who you are, who perfects the walk that you're on. You don't need validation from anyone else. Now, again, husbands, kids, validate them. Tell them how good they're doing. But you are loved. You are a child of God. And that's the only thing that matters. You don't need to be like anybody else. You were created to be different from everyone else. Live that out. Enjoy the journey that God has for you. Trust in him. And just enjoy the heck out of the time that you have with your kids. And I promise you, it will be a much easier road than trying to be like somebody else and keeping up with the Joneses, okay? Can we do that today? Can we do that, moms? Release yourself. Get off social media if that's a problem for you. You don't need to compare yourself to that junk anyway. Just compare yourself to who you are in Christ, and that is loved and valued. You're the one that he loves. That's what he wants to speak over you today, God.
Once again, thank you for stopping by today. We'd love for you to be a part of our family at one of our services. You can find out all of our information at simplechurchtulsa.com, and we'd love to pray for you any way we can. So please message us, and we hope you have a great week.